Cowboy adopted a lost Apache girl. Turned out to be a gorgeous Apache widow's daughter. The Arizona desert was merciless that evening, swallowing the horizon in a swirling wall of dust and copper light. Cole Turner had ridden through storms before, but this one felt different, angrier, almost alive. His hat was pulled low, his jaw tight as the wind clawed at him and his horse. He just wanted to get home to the quiet of his ranch, to the silence that had become his only companion after years of living alone. No laughter echoed in his house anymore. No soft voice waited by the door. Just wind and memory. Then he heard it. At first, he thought it was the storm playing tricks on him. A faint sound tangled in the howl of the desert. But it came again. A cry, small, fragile, desperate. Cole pulled the reins and listened carefully. His horse shifted nervously as the sound drifted from somewhere beyond a cluster of jagged rocks. He dismounted, boots sinking into sand, and followed the cry until he found what looked like the remains of a broken wagon half buried by the storm. One wheel was snapped clean off. A trunk lay cracked open nearby, its contents scattered and lost to the wind. And there she was, a little girl crouched beside the wreckage, wrapped in a torn shawl, far too thin for the desert night that was coming. Dust streaked her small face, but her eyes, dark and fierce, never left his. She didn't scream when she saw him, didn't try to run. She just stood there, trembling but defiant. Cole raised his hand slowly so he wouldn't frighten her. "Easy now," he said gently, his voice rough from dust and disuse. "I'm not gonna hurt you." She clutched something tight against her chest, knuckles white with effort. When he stepped closer, he saw it, a silver pendant shaped like a hawk, gleaming even under layers of sand. "What's your name, kid?" he asked softly. She hesitated before answering. "Naya." He scanned the area again, heart pounding. No bodies, no horses, no tracks that hadn't already been erased by the storm. Whoever had been with her was gone. The wind began to shift colder now. Night would fall soon, and the desert would turn deadly. Cole looked down at the small, stubborn girl and felt something inside his chest crack open. He had buried enough ghosts in this land. He wouldn't leave another one to die. "All right, Naya," he said quietly, kneeling to her level. "Looks like you're riding with me." For a moment she studied him as if measuring his soul. Then, without a word, she stepped forward and let him lift her onto his horse. As they rode into the storm together, Cole had no idea that this small, silent child would change his life, or that somewhere beyond the desert, a powerful mother was searching for her lost daughter. Weeks passed, and the little ranch that had once known only silence began to feel different. Naya moved through the house like a quiet shadow at first, barely speaking, her sharp eyes observing everything Cole did. She woke before sunrise, just as he did, standing on the porch to watch the desert turn gold. She learned quickly how to brush down a horse without getting kicked, how to carry water without spilling a drop, how to mend a torn saddle strap with steady fingers far too small for such work. She never complained, never asked for more than what was given. But at night, when the wind picked up, Cole sometimes heard her whispering softly in a language he didn't understand. The town, however, understood enough. Word spread fast that Cole Turner had taken in an Apache child. At the general store, conversations stopped when he walked in. Men who used to slap his back now kept their distance. Women pulled their children a little closer. The stares weren't subtle. One afternoon, Sheriff Dalton rode up to the ranch unannounced. The sun was high and Naya was sitting on the fence, watching Cole fix a broken gate. She slid down quietly when she saw the badge glinting in the light. Dalton removed his hat, wiping sweat from his brow. "Cole," he greeted, voice stiff. "We need to talk." Cole leaned against the post, arms folded. "About what?" "About the girl." Naya stood near the porch, listening without appearing to. Dalton lowered his voice. "There's talk in town. Folks are uneasy. You know how things are." "She's a child," Cole replied flatly. "Not a threat." "That's not the point," Dalton insisted. "There are rumors. An Apache widow's been searching settlements and ranches, asking questions. Some say she's the widow of Chief Kiona." The name hung heavy in the air. Cole had heard of Kiona, a respected Apache leader who had tried negotiating peace before. He was killed in a violent land dispute. If this widow was truly his wife, she wouldn't be someone to ignore. Before Cole could respond, Naya stepped forward. In her hand was the silver hawk pendant. She held it up, sunlight catching its engraved wings. Dalton's face drained of color. "That symbol," he muttered. "It belongs to Ayana. She wears the same hawk at tribal gatherings. It's their family mark." Silence fell between the men. Cole looked down at Naya, realization settling in his chest. She wasn't just any lost child. She was the daughter of a powerful woman, a grieving widow who might believe her. Child had been stolen. Dalton put his hat back on. "If that woman comes here, it won't be quiet. You need to decide what you're doing, Cole." After the sheriff rode away, the ranch felt smaller somehow. That night, as they sat by the lantern light, Naya finally spoke more than a few words. Her voice was steady, far older than her years. "My mama is coming." Cole met her gaze. "To take you home?" She shook her head slowly. "She is coming for justice." Sunrise painted the desert in golden fire when Cole felt it before he saw it, the shift in the air, the warning silence that made even the horses restless. He stepped out onto the porch, boots thudding softly against the wood, and narrowed his eyes toward the horizon. Riders, at least 6 of them. They moved in formation, steady and unhurried, like they feared nothing this land could offer. Dust trailed behind them in pale ribbons. And at the front rode a woman who commanded the morning itself. Even from a distance, Cole could tell she was different. Her posture was straight, proud. Long dark hair fell in a thick braid over her shoulder, woven with beads that caught the rising sun. She wore traditional Apache garments, adorned with subtle stitching, and silver pieces that glinted softly with each movement of her horse. There was grief in her face, yes, but it did not weaken her. It sharpened her. Naya appeared beside him, barefoot and silent. The moment she saw the riders, her breath caught. "Mama," she whispered. Before Cole could react, she bolted from the porch, racing across the dirt yard toward them. His heart slammed against his ribs as the riders slowed. The woman at the front dismounted in one fluid motion, dropping to her knees just as Naya threw herself into her arms. The sound that left the woman's throat was not a warrior's cry, it was a mother's. She held Naya tightly, as if the earth might steal her away again. Her fingers trembled as they brushed through her daughter's hair, checking her face, her shoulders, her arms, as though confirming she was real. Cole approached slowly, keeping his hands visible. "I found her in the storm," he said, voice steady, despite the tension building around him. "Alone, wagon wrecked, no one else in sight." The woman rose to her feet, her daughter still clinging to her side. Up close, her eyes were striking, dark, intelligent, and filled with both gratitude and warning. "I am Ayana," she said firmly, widow of Chief Kiona. The riders behind her shifted, watching Cole with guarded hostility. One of them stepped forward, jaw tight. "A white rancher keeping the chief's daughter?" he said sharply. "That brings dishonor." Cole's shoulders stiffened. "I kept her alive." Before anger could spark into something worse, Naya stepped between them, small but unafraid. "He saved me," she declared clearly. "He gave me food. He gave me a horse. He did not hurt me." Silence settled heavily over the yard. Ayana studied Cole for a long moment. She searched his face not for excuses, but for truth. He did not look away. Finally, she inclined her head slightly. "You protected what is mine," she said. "For that you have my gratitude." The tension didn't disappear, but it shifted. Naya reached back blindly until her fingers found Cole's hand. She held it tightly, refusing to choose between worlds. And in that simple, stubborn gesture, something fragile and unexpected began to form. Not peace. Not yet, but possibility. The days after Ayana's arrival did not explode into violence, the way the town had predicted. Instead, something slower and far more complicated began to grow. Cole found himself riding out toward the Apache settlement more often than he ever imagined he would. The first time he expected rifles aimed at his chest. Instead, he was met with watchful eyes and cautious silence. Naya ran ahead of him, laughing as if no divide had ever existed between the two worlds. He kept his distance at first, helped mend a broken fence line after a dust storm, repaired a wagon wheel without being asked, shared sacks of grain during a dry week when supplies ran thin. He did not try to lead. He did not try to change anything. He simply showed up. Ayana watched everything. She stood tall among her people. Grief still etched into her features, but no longer consuming her. Widow of Chief Kiona, she carried responsibility like armor. Some nights, when the desert cooled and the fires burned low, she would sit across from Cole, with only the flames between them. "My husband believed peace with settlers was possible," she said one evening, her voice steady but heavy. He spoke of shared water, shared land. Some called him naive. Cole stared into the fire. "My wife died during a raid years ago," he admitted quietly. "I blamed your people for a long time. It was easier than blaming the chaos that started it." Ayana met his eyes. Pain makes enemies where there might have been none. There was no argument left in him. When a wealthy landowner from town tried to force the Apache families off their territory, weeks later, claiming false ownership papers, the old tension threatened to rise again. Men gathered. Voices hardened. The town expected conflict. He found Cole beside them. Word spread quickly that the cowboy had sided with Ayana's people. Some called him a traitor. Others began to question the story they had always believed. When the sheriff investigated the papers and discovered the forgery, the landowner rode away humiliated. Not loud, not immediate, but real. One evening under a sky thick with stars, Ayana rode out to Cole's ranch alone. Naya was already asleep inside after insisting on staying the night. "You risked much," Ayana said softly as they stood beside the fence. "So did you," Cole replied. The wind moved gently between them now, no longer harsh or angry. "You protected my daughter," she continued. "Not because she was Apache, not because of obligation, but because she was alone." Cole nodded. "She saved me too, gave this place a heartbeat again." For a long moment neither spoke. Then Ayana reached out, her hand brushing his, not by accident but by choice. It was not a promise, but it was the beginning of something neither war nor grief had managed to destroy. And in the quiet desert night, beneath endless stars, a broken cowboy and a fearless widow realized that family could be chosen, and love could rise from the ashes of old pain.